Hello and welcome to the DC Stewart Show Podcast. How to go? How you doing? Isaiah and myself, we're going to be covering the Florida LSU game today. So what to do? Welcome to you visitors. Welcome to all the people who are joining us. We're glad to have you aboard. It is a Saturday. It is college game day. We've had some really nice games earlier. I watched the Clemson Georgia Tech. That was a nail biter. Right now, it looks like Florida is just getting started with LSU. They're playing at LSU right now. And Georgia just ended the game with Tennessee, which they scored, actually, and they ended the football game. They got out of it kind of by the skin of their teeth in a way because Tennessee played them really tough today. So we'll be covering this game in full. We'll take a break at halftime. If you have any questions or any, concerns, let us know. I just want to say go ahead and hit that like button and hit that subscribe button because we're here for you. Want to check in with Isaiah. We're going to get started, and I just want to find out how you're doing today. How did your day go? And let's kick this thing off. It looks like they're into the first quarter.
Yeah, I got up this morning eager and anticipating the Canes game, and it turned out great. The Canes came out to a fast start, and then still in the first quarter they had a rain delay with lightning, and it took an hour and a half for them to get back started. But they back on par now, and as the score is 28-6 right now, with the Canes are clearly being like the big dog in the fence right now and handling South Florida. South Florida do not have an answer at all. So the state of Florida getting a payback from Florida getting beat last couple of weeks ago. Now the Canes are doing some work, putting some work in on them, man, because they don't have an answer at all for the Miami Hurricanes at all.
Well, that was a prediction, technically. I think South Florida felt like they could come in and have a chance to win, but then again, all of the college game day guys this morning, they pretty much picked Miami to win this game and to win it big. It looks like Florida is jumping out there, man. They just had a punt return, and they're looking really good right now against LSU. LSU just punted the ball off to them after they had the ball first and foremost. Najee will be back with us on Monday, so we'll have a weekend wrap-up show on Monday. I'm just so encouraged and so enlightened to be here today. I feel good. I've got a lot done today. Did some stuff around the house. Was able to have a few things going on. It's always nice to watch college football. College football is everything to me. I like NFL, but college football sticks out the most, as well as Isaiah. Want to send a special shout out to TJ. I met TJ yesterday, Houston, Texas native, and TJ is going to be joining us at some point on this show. And I just wanted to send a quick shout out to him. I want to send a shout out to Terrence as well, because Terrence will be joining us as well on this show, scheduled upcoming. So, where the party at? Isaiah, where is the party?
Right here, baby.
The party is right here.
5, taking care of business. The only thing I need is my dolphin to get on track.
And you're wearing green. You're making me feel kind of ashamed because I think I should have wore green today myself. Because the Canes is looking super, super sharp, right?
They back, man. They're back. They putting in their work, man. South Florida going back to South Florida with these tail between their legs, taking care of business.
Well, absolutely. And you know what? Miami, this is going to be their year. Let's talk a little bit about Clemson in that game against Georgia Tech. Clemson did not look sharp today. Clemson, to me, is on a trajectory down. And I'll say that, and I say that with a sensitivity because I respect the program. I respect Dabo Swinney. Unfortunately, Dabo Swinney did not make adjustments during this game, or not enough adjustments, because Georgia Tech was constantly ready for him, pretty much. Georgia Tech's defense played really well. Haynes King, of course, was Haynes King. He played super sharp in this game. When he needed to run, he ran. When he needed to throw, he threw. When he needed to option the ball off, he optioned the ball off. And that's Haynes King for you. And that's the Georgia Tech offense for you. Georgia Tech is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year, and I think they're going to have to meet Miami, so that should be a really big game, I believe. That's going to be a huge game for both teams because I think whoever wins that game will be in full control of the ACC because if you look at these two teams, they look like the strongest to me as I've seen so far. I watched a little bit of that Wake Forest and North Carolina State game yesterday. And North Carolina State and Wake Forest both looked good. I mean, they both looked sharp, but it's a difference between looking good and looking superior. And a lot of teams, they can look good, but they don't have all of the things in place to be a superior team, to be a superior program. And that's what it's all about. Building superiority in every level of the game means that special teams means offense, defense. You got the right athletes playing in the right positions. You got the right organization, and everything is clicking like it should. And it looks like Miami and Georgia Tech that's going to be a total showdown. What do you think about that?
Well, there's going to be a beast, man. There's going to be a dogfight because both of these programs are willing. They're sharp. They got everything, man. Miami has a big offensive line, and they're just pushing people around. Right now, they're pushing South Florida around, and their running backs are running hard, and the quarterback, Beck ran this beautiful bootleg touchdown, and they're giving them a lot of time to throw the ball. So, when they play Tech don't have to bring it. And of course, South Florida came in here with a game plan, the blitz and the stunt, and they just not being able to get the back because of this offensive line that the Miami Hurricanes had. I mean, I hadn't seen this line in a long, long time. They're 330, 340 or plus, man. And these guys not fat and sloppy. They're freaking chiseled. They're fast. They keep their blocks. And the receivers as well. Fletcher ran a touchdown because you can clearly see how all of these offensive players are sustaining their blocks. They're running down the field, blocking the DBs. And I know, by me being a running back, I know it's not all about being a brilliant running back. It's all about your offensive line and your receivers and your tight end getting downfield to disturb these DBs and these safeties, man, because otherwise you won't strike these long runs. And that's what the Miami Hurricanes are doing. So if you ain't ready to get blocked, you got to get ready to take these blocks from the Miami Hurricanes because they're doing everything necessary to win these games, man. They're more disciplined than I've seen them in a long time. Very little penalties. I'm loving watching them, man. So when they play Tech has to be ready. They're going to get a bloodbath, just like they're doing South Florida right now.
From what I can see out of Tech today, and I watched Tech against Colorado, and Colorado, I as far as Colorado is concerned, we'll have some conversation about that team because I watched them play Houston yesterday, and it just seems like some of the things we saw last year we're witnessing this year from Colorado, which the main factor and the main thing is they can't stop the run. They can't stop quarterbacks from running. They can't stop running backs from getting to lanes and shutting it down. And something needs to be done about that from the perspective is they're going to have to, in other words, it's not all their defense's fault from yesterday because their offense was ineffective as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But getting back to Georgia Tech and Miami, Georgia Tech's got a big offensive line too. And they've been pushing everybody around. They pushed Clemson around pretty much most of the game. Clemson wasn't able to get in there on Haynes King like they wanted to. So it's going to be a battle because I think both lines are going to match up. Defensive line against offensive line from both teams, they're going to match up really well. And that's what's going to make this game even better once we get to that point where this game is going to be just off the charts, I believe. With all of that said, I still think Miami is in control of the ACC this year, and nobody's going to stop them, especially with Carson Beck. that deadly running game that they have. They have two freshman wide receivers, C.J. Daniels, Malachi Tony. These guys are awesome. They are off the chart. And it's going to be hard to shut them down on offense, as well as their defense is stepping up, and their defense is playing above the rim from last year. They look altogether different. Their defense is getting to the ball faster. Their DBs are covering better. They're not making mistakes. You know, the biggest thing last year is they made a lot of mistakes they shouldn't have made last year. And we don't see that so far right now. And you've been watching that South Florida game versus Miami so far. So how many mistakes have Miami made, if any?
Well, they had one mistake so far. They jumped off sides. One play, number 61, jumped off sides. You know, one of the tackles jumped off side. But that was probably some noise stuff where he couldn't hear the call. So the discipline, they're there. When it comes to their discipline, they got it, man, because when you got a team as sharp as the Miami Hurricanes, you make very little mistakes. You know, in little mistakes, you don't do it. And that's how you win ball games. If you're physical, you're rugged, you're aggressive, you know, all of that comes with a body of work during those summer hot months when you're sweating, you're tired, you're fatigued, and all of this stuff bottled into one, and you still got to keep a level head not to jump off sides. So they got that now. Usually you get fatigued and you lose your count, you lose your head, and you jump off sides and you cost your team. But they're not doing that anymore. They just are playing a good, solid game of football.
That's awesome. And you know what? We're going to keep an eye on that game. But this game, this LSU Florida game, is huge. LSU is ranked number 3. Florida is, you know, they're teetering on complete disaster. If they don't get this game won tonight, which I don't think they will.
Kick the field goal. Yeah, they just kicked the field goal to go up.
Right. So Florida needs to stay focused and control this game and don't let anything distract them that they can't beat LSU in Baton Rouge at home, because they can. If they execute properly and if they execute like they should, Florida should be able to be competitive in this game. DJ Lagway, which is their phenom quarterback, I mean, he's off the charts. He was a freshman, and he had to play against Miami last year in the very opener because the starting quarterback got hurt. And Lagway came in, and he did a fairly decent job to have been kind of, you know, not expecting to be in the game since that other quarterback went down. As we know, LSU Stadium, Tiger Stadium, is sold out. It's full. I'm looking at it from this angle right now, from the Skycam angle, and you know, it's just, this thing is really going to get good throughout this game, and we'll hit some of the fine points of this game. Some of the players that's going to probably make a difference for both teams. But let's talk a little bit about the tale of the two coaches. Okay, we got Billy Napier. He's a good coach, very, very sharp coach in a lot of areas, and then we have Brian Kelly, that's LSU's coach. Brian Kelly basically came from Notre Dame. He was able to parlay himself into a position at LSU, and he's just really getting his footing at LSU right now, I think, especially since they went in and was able to get Clemson out of the way that first game of the week. What do you think Brian Kelly needs to do today to make sure his team execute and get to a victory?
Well, he's got all the tools to do it with, man, because, you know, clearly Florida has been exposed. They've gotten beat, and they had their pride hurt. So it's relatively easy for them to sink back in that mode where I'll give up and I'll lose this game, because LSU, you know, their program has always been on the top. They never had hit like a slump where they're on a downtrend.
Right.
And if they just go out there and play solid ball, Florida would just give it away, because from what I could see with Florida, they don't play solid football throughout the whole entire game. And that's always problematic, man. And I just hope he can gather these guys and get them where they can focus their mind on playing all 4 strong quarters. And if he can't do that, they're going to lose, man, because I'm going to tell you, LSU going to stay after it the entire game.
I think so
So
too.
they better be prepared. They
I
better
think
be
so
prepared.
too. So Florida, in other words, what you're saying, Florida needs to close a game out. They need to get into control of the flow of the game and the momentum, of course, and then they need to be able to close a game out, but be consistent throughout the game to keep the flow going, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world, DC, because what they'll do is they'll play hard the first couple quarters, and then they'll seem like they just going through the motions, and that's not the case if you want to be a champion. And I watched some of their play. They're strong in the first half, and then after the third and fourth quarter, they don't seem like they have that same intensity.
Right.
So that's why they wind up losing.
Right.
And that's been like that ever since last year.
Exactly. Florida so far right now, from what I can see, that they look like they are motivated to play hard. They're on defense right now. Looks like it's a 4th and 1. So LSU, whether they go for it or not, we'll see. But so far, Florida's defense has stepped up, and they've done what they're supposed to do, and they're playing aggressive. It looks like they're playing aggressive. Looks like they're not afraid to come into, Tiger Stadium and play. And that's the key. I mean, right now it looks like LSU is getting ready to punt again on a 4th and 1. So they're giving the ball back to Florida. Florida's up 3 points. So think about that. I mean, they're up 3 points. That makes a huge difference, I would say. Wouldn't you say?
Well, I've never taken that away from them. They always play good in the first half. This is their game. But that third and fourth quarters is where they've been lacking. If they can keep the same intensity for 4 quarters, maybe they'll win more games. And I think that, everybody is seeing this. They're game planning for this game of first half play. They're going to only give you a first couple quarters. They're going to play the crap out of you. And then the second half, they're not going to be as strong. I don't know whether it's their fatigue or whether they just not practicing hard enough, or they don't have the pride to just sustain a 4-quarter game.
Right. So Brian Kelly, for one thing, that I could give him credit for it. His team, even though last year they didn't do as well as expected, because that LSU faithful is just like any other SEC faithful. They're fans. They're diehard fans. You got one generation in the family that goes to the next generation, that pulls for LSU. It's just like in Alabama and all these other SEC type teams. And pretty much, for the most part, all conferences are similar to that. However, when you got LSU and, Coach Orgeron, Coach O, he got let go because they couldn't be consistent enough, even though he won a national championship. Brian Kelly is going to have to lead this team to that playoff and go very deep into that playoff, if not to the championship, to try to get to that championship and accomplish a championship for this program. Wouldn't you say?
Yes. They're not going to accept anything less, DC. Whenever a team go to a championship and win, that's everything, to a community, the school, the staff, the board of the campus of which won the championship. They all looking for that again, and that can soon go away. The moment you have a drop off over there, they start cutting their eyes at you like, "You man, what's going on?" Because
absolutely.
They're spoiled. They're easy to get spoiled, but they don't know how difficult it is to be a winner and stay like that, man. You could have a championship team just like LSU had. And then here it is, the next couple of years, the same guy who went undefeated or almost undefeated, but he did win the championship, is Orgeron, and he was let go. And they don't care how much money they owe you. They will concoct that money and pay you off to get out of here. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, they was just talking about getting rid of Alabama's coach. I mean, he's since bounced back, but they was heated with him because that drop off from where Saban was. These guys are spoiled. They don't know. Coaches like Nick Saban come around every now and then. You can't
Right.
just get
He's
these
a
guys to come
generational
around, man.
type of coach, I would say,
Yes,
wouldn't you say?
that's exactly what he is.
Yeah.
And if you look at everybody who coached under him, they're winning. I don't know any coach that took the mantle to go out on their own that was under the umbrella of Nick Saban are losers. And we can go to several of them. I mean, even here in Miami, with our head coach, he's a protege of working with Nick Saban. And here, these guys, every last one, the Georgia head coach, the coach out in Texas, these
Kirby
guys are
Smart,
all, yeah,
Steve,
mhm,
I mean, Sarkeesian,
it's
all of these
Sarkisian.
coaches are,
Yes,
it's a boys club. Well, it's a club, a special club
there's
of
a club
coaches.
of guys where you just cannot, buy that. You just can't buy. These guys learn. They got the school of hard knocks of coaching, and it's paying off for all of them.
That's
No
right.
matter what position they play or they coached under him, they all are really, really good coaching. They're very disciplined coaching. Their teams are disciplined.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
Florida is moving the ball pretty good from what I can see right now. It looks like, as you said earlier, that if they can keep this consistency throughout the game, they have a really strong shot to win this football game. Because LSU is off balance right now. They're running option plays on them. DJ Lagway, which I told you, he's a sophomore. I mean, and he's running this offense like he's been there for 3-4 years, from what I can see now. And he's a special kind of quarterback. I mean, he was a high. His performance in high school was just off the charts, and Billy Napier were able to get him to come to Florida and play at Florida, and that's a big deal for Florida. And it looks like Billy Napier's got the right game plan right now, so we'll continue to monitor it throughout the game to see how well Florida continues to perform on offense and defense, because they're shutting LSU down. 2 punts already in the first quarter. So that's a big deal. LSU has got to get on track and start. Their offense needs to start moving the ball, because if they don't, they're going to get tired. Their defense is going to get tired. And that's when things tend to get really kind of shaky for a team. When the defense starts to get tired, you see those linemen with their hands on their hips, or it could be linebackers or
That's
any of
right.
those defenders, right?
Yep, that's the prime example. When you see these men walking around with their hands on their hip, that's a sign of fatigue. Every time it is.
Absolutely.
There's no question about it. Once they put their hands on their hip, you already know fatigue is setting in or already there.
That's right. That's right. So I have a question for you, and let's move on to some of the games, and we'll talk a little bit about Colorado against Houston. It looks like Houston controlled the ball in the second half for almost 13 plus minutes. That's almost a full quarter, because a full quarter is 15 minutes if you think about it.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That's very problematic. Coach Prime acknowledged today that it's problematic. It needs to be fixed. He took responsibility for it, along with some of the decisions that was made during that game, because he said he never expected to lose this football game, especially with the way that they practiced this past week. What happened in that game that went wrong for Colorado because their quarterback did not play well? He's been named the starter just recently. The quarterback has, and Caden Salter, he started the season out, but right now I guess Coach Prime thought it would be a good idea to make the change. Do you think it was a good idea to make the change with quarterbacks on that team?
I think that was a bad decision on Coach Prime's part. I don't see that happening too often, DC, where you got the entire summer to evaluate your quarterback, and unless he get hurt, if he's injured, okay, fine, you go with your second string guy. You don't swap out guys this early, man. I mean, I don't get. I mean, unless you got a freaking flat out blowout when he was throwing picks everywhere. But you got to make this guy come earn that job again. You can't have a good week of practice and then change quarterbacks. That guy got to screw up in a game, and he's got to get hurt. He's got to be a guy where he don't look like he's worthy of being a starter. Because what you do is create uncertainty in your quarterback position, and these guys are not confident anymore. I mean, what's going to happen to a second string quarterback now if he has to go back in? His confidence level is severely diminished because of that. So you don't change these quarterbacks like that. The entire summer, these guys practice twice a day at least. Because when we were in college and high school, you practice 2 a day when you were in the summer months.
Right.
And then, of course, when the season starts, you practice that once. But it's just I don't understand that move. And then you make a move like that and still lose. That don't look good on him as a head coach. It don't look like good as decision making with him making that change like that. And not only he damaged the quarterback's confidence, but you got the offensive line. They got a feeling. This thing with these quarterbacks is a feeling, DC. It's a feeling.
Right.
With the starters, it's a feeling because they can feel which way I got to block, which way I can sustain this block. All of this stuff, these linemen can feel. When you swap out quarterbacks like this, because you're going to have one quarterback that's more comfortable than the other one. You're going to have one quarterback that just know how to get rid of the ball. You got one quarterback that makes better decisions. And all of that coincide with that offensive line. They know how long they can block a guy and shift off of which way to push him because they know your quarterback is smart enough to react to the way they're blocking. So when you make that quarterback swap like that, it could be a severe damage to your offense. So I'm going to watch and see how this thing panned out in the next game because from looking at their schedule, DC, they got an uphill battle, man.
They do.
This game, when they just tossed off, these 2 games that they lost, they should have won those games because what's coming up next is some harder ball players.
Well, their schedule is getting ready to get more difficult, and that's why I say I thought they should have. To me personally, I thought they should have won that Georgia Tech game. They made a ton of mistakes. They didn't make good. The quarterback, Caden Salter, who was playing in that game, it was his first game, but that's not an excuse. You have to step. Yeah, I just seen that pick off. Yeah, Lagway just threw a pick. And LSU, he threw that into coverage, and I think he might have telegraphed it. I think he telegraphed it. You know what I mean by telegraphed it? He had his eyes on the receiver the whole way. Yeah, so the defensive back knew to step in and grab it because you can't stare down a receiver like that and expect it to be.
That's a sign of they're not connected, DC. And he threw that. They had 3 defenders right there, and he tried to force that ball in. I mean, and it was thrown short too.
Yeah, it was thrown short.
That's going to be a costly mistake for them. That's going to be a costly mistake for them. You
Absolutely.
Watch, if they can get even a field goal out of that, that's going to be hurtful for them.
Yeah. The one thing about this game that I like for Florida's chances is their defense has just got to step up to the plate and shut LSU down and don't let them score too much. I know that might be sounding easier said than done, but I think it could be done because Florida's got a really good defense. As we can see, they've always Napier's defense, even last year, they were very solid. But right now, they're going to have that defense is just going to have to step up. And then Lagway, he's over on the sideline right now with the offensive coordinator going over that particular probably play and, what needed to be done or what wasn't done or whatever the case may be. But he'll get another opportunity to, get back on offense and make this thing happen because they were moving the ball a little bit before. And it looks like Nussmeier for LSU has got the ball right now. He just threw an incomplete pass because it was batted down. That's why I say Florida's defense is going to have to step up and really kind of amp it up a level, even though they're at the top of the level right now, I think, because the defense is what's going to really keep them in this game, I think. Wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Well, the defense going to have to carry them because DC, when That ball that was thrown that was severely short, and he just telegraphed that play. As a player and a coach, they're not gelling, man. A
Right.
quarterback's supposed to look off and be a decoy some kind of way. He's
Correct.
got to fool the receiver. You can't stare your freaking receiver down. You're going to get picked by the slowest defensive back because they're not going to even look at the movement of the receiver. They're going to watch your eyes and watch your motion, and they're going to come and attack the ball because they're not gelling. If you watch Peyton Manning, because he was masterful at it, Peyton Manning would not only try to play a head game with you with his cadence, he will hide the ball from you. And he would try to make you think he don't even have the ball in his hand anymore.
That's right.
He would
Absolutely.
tuck the ball on his hip. He would turn around here, tuck it in his stomach. He would do anything to make you think he's already gotten rid of the ball, whether it was a little and he would, even when he bootlegged the ball, you don't know he have it until you see him take off and the crowd start running.
That's right.
Yell, ha, ha, because he would hide the ball. And your eyes tell the story. And if you're looking at your receiver, what you think everybody going to do? They're going to react to your eyes. And this is a good decoy to throw them off if you know what you're doing.
That's
And
right.
it's clearly showing that these guys are not on the same page. Because a quarterback can be looking, it's just like when Magic was delivering his ball when he was coming down the court. Magic would have that no-look pass, and it would hit that assist every time.
That's right.
Because he wasn't looking at the guy who he was going to throw the ball to.
He
that's the
looked
same
off.
thing in
He looked
football.
away from the guy he was going to throw the ball to,
right.
which opened it wide open for that player to score or to do whatever he needed to do, right?
That's the feeling, DC. You can't buy that. That comes with repetition. It comes with practice. It
Yes.
comes with skill. All
Yes.
that comes with skill. You can't do that. Every guy cannot do that. They can want to do it, but you just got to be talented enough to be as smooth as he is to be able to deliver that ball like that. And that's what these quarterbacks need to learn. They need to learn this. I mean, I think they need to practice this all day of not watching what your receiver is going to do. And the way you do it is repetition. That's
Absolutely.
the only way it's going to happen.
So it looks like Florida just scored. Florida. Well, I guess it came back.
That was a broken play.
It was a broken play, yeah. But it came back because it looks like it's 3rd and 3 right now, with 3 minutes plus to go. He had the guy wide open. I guess the guy, I didn't see what actually happened.
Holding.
Yeah, it was holding then. It was a penalty because he had him wide open. He was back there by himself.
Wow.
But the offensive lineman did hold.
So
yes, I can see it.
How unfortunate. How unfortunate when this guy was running for his life and then get the ball off and they held.
You only have a split second to probably a second to engage and let go. I mean, that for an offensive lineman, you have to engage and let go. You can't just continue on and jack a person.
That's so unfortunate, DC, because that lineman who got caught for holding, he didn't have to hold. He did his job. He knocked the guy down, but then he held him to the ground. So that's why they called it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the quarterback had already got out of the way. So that's very unfortunate for him to get that touchdown call back. So
that would have been 7, which would have put 10 points on the board for Florida. So 7 points came off the board because of a penalty, right? And that's what we were talking about last time we talked about during the show was penalties.
Now they're going to wind up giving the ball back now because it's 3rd and 4th down and 9.
It's 4th and 10. Yeah.
Well, he lost a yard then.
Harris
he did. Is the guy who held.
And the punter is in his own end zone, but he did get it off. And it looks like LSU is going to have great field position. Yeah. They're going to start out at the 45-yard line on their side of the field. So that's pretty good field position for LSU, right?
Yep. If they capitalize off of this, how bad that number 77 Harris is going to feel to say that they took a touchdown off the board because he held when he shouldn't have. And all of this stuff like this, I tell you, is a sign of discipline, man. If you're gonna, even when I played, I say don't hold the guy. Maybe that guy who you held, he probably
Mm-hmm.
wasn't gonna even tackle me. So don't hold. I used to tell the lineman that all the time as a running
Mm-hmm.
back. Don't hold anybody. Let them tackle me or just try to tackle me because maybe I'll run them over. Maybe I'll elude him. I'll shake him off. But when you hold, we're gonna get penalized for it.
Exactly.
So
So, what do you think? Let's get back to the Colorado that we were talking about earlier. What do you think is needed for Colorado to turn it around right now, immediately? Because Colorado's got to turn this thing around, or their season's going to be toast.
it's toast already. It's toast already, DC. There's going to be some massive changes need to be made, and I'm talking about attitude-wise because he's got, you know, Prime has some playmakers on his team. He has some guys who can make some big plays, but they so far between making these big plays. He needs some game breakers on there. He needs some leaders. I don't see leaders on his team. I think Warren Sapp and the rest of the gang over there on defense, they need to start calling these guys out to be leaders, man, and not to be able to take a loss so easily. Bro, I just see a new culture of losers. When you lose a game, you just go through the motions. When I played, if we lost a game, man, I don't want to party. I don't want
It
to go out.
sounded
I
like
don't want to do any
it
of
felt like
that
the end
stuff,
of the
man.
world, right? In a way.
Yeah, it felt like,
Yeah.
oh man, how in the world can we let this slip away? And these guys will just go through emotions, man, and they act like nothing did never happen. They'll still go out to the clubs and go have their little socializing with their buddies and stuff like that. And it's not that pride where you say, man, I got to go get myself better. I got to do this better. I got to go watch more film. I got to go study the next team that's coming up. And they do it the same day. I remember Kobe Bryant, when he played, he had that attitude. He used to go back to the gym. If he missed a clutch shot where they needed, he'd go back in there and start working on his game when everybody in the stadium is empty. Everybody done left out of the gym, and he's there shooting the ball around, and either he'll be first in the gym the next day. So those are the sign of championship winners and champions and guys who got pride and respect for the game, all of that bottled into one, and they're leaders. And he needs some leadership on his team. He needs some guys to be out in the front. And the swag is gone. He don't have Shador and Shiloh and Hunter anymore. He needs somebody to fill in their shoes, playmakers and leadership wise. So I mean, he's got to really dig deep. I know he was out for the summer because he had some health issues, but when you dig down, that shouldn't drip off because you miss a month or so. You need to embed in these kids that foundation of winning and
That's
have
right.
that attitude go along with them. So if you're not there, they'll still do what they're supposed to do because good players will continue to do their job when you're not watching. They don't make these mistakes. You don't have to watch over them for them to do a good job. You got to have enough pride and self-persevere to do it without somebody getting on you for doing the right thing. Yep.
You know what? You're spot on. And that's why, I was just taking in everything you just said, that it doesn't seem like Colorado have the players now that's going to just say, look, I'm going to take this game into my own hands. And I'm going to galvanize my team around me. Because I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to step to the plate. Just like you said about Shador and Hunter and those guys, they're gone. And they got to have kids that will come in and say, look, I'm taking over and I'm going to have these guys follow me because I'm going to play hard. I'm going to get to some of the things that is needed. In other words, they need field generals out there. They need players that's technically like coaches on the field. Look, if a player makes a mistake, the coach shouldn't even have to talk to him. It should be your teammates stepping to you saying, man, what happened? How did you blow that coverage? If that's deep half, it's deep half. If we're playing cover two, cover two. Whatever the case may be, these players have to hold each other accountable. Because as you see on a lot of the better teams, the teams that are at the top, their players tend to hold each other accountable. And sometimes the coach, even in practice, will allow the players to control practice themselves so that they can hold each other accountable in practice. And that's where you train them. So in a game that, look, we don't have any margin of error for you to blow a coverage or you to miss a tackle or, you not to make a play, because it's all about making plays. I think it boils down to that. I really do.
Well, especially DC, when you have these players that's like equally talented, when you have the players that's equally strong, when you have players who's equally coached, it's going to come down to who make that big play at that time.
Right.
When they're vulnerable. Somebody got to pop up for a big run, or somebody got to pop up in a big catch, or somebody got to get a pick six if it's on defense. Because if it's a stalemate on offense, your defense might have to score for you.
Absolutely.
So DBs and linebackers and cause a fumble on that interior line, but you got to make a play. And once you got a leader on that team, it's so easy for followers. The country is full of followers, man. And it all just take one guy who can step ahead and want to be a leader. So many people don't know how to lead. They're good people, but they don't know how to lead. But when you get a leader, it's easy to have these people follow suit. So when you got a guy who make a great tackle, bam, stop this guy in his track.
That fires everybody else up.
Don't you know how fired up everybody else gets?
That's right.
Because that adrenaline starts to flow. Even when a couple of years ago, well, 3 or 4 years ago, when they started that turnover chain here in Miami with the University
I remember that when Manny Diaz was down there. Yeah,
was off the rails, dog, because people want to be gratified and held and loved because you made a good play, and that spotlight gonna be on you for that moment.
Right.
When I played, I don't see them doing that anymore. But every time that you made a touchdown, they put a bar on that helmet, and it really looked beautiful, man, throughout the season. And you know who was good for doing that? Ohio State Buckeyes.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
If you had a clutch hit, if you had a pick six, they would put that little thing on your helmet. We had a nice thing going when I played. Every time you get a touchdown, you have a bar. And I think it was the 8th game of the season, I had 17 bars on my helmet. And, dude, that thing looked beautiful. Because the opposing team said, this dude must be something. I already read about him in the newspaper, but damn it, he got 17 bars on his helmet for running touchdowns, and then all the other stuff. If you got a good block, you got a good hit. It was a way of you rewarding for good play, and that's what that turnover chain was. It's rewarding you for good play, and the spotlight is totally on you because the news media had the camera on whoever had that turnover chain. So who don't want that around their neck?
Right.
So that's what he need to create something. He's got to get in these guys' mind. He's got to psychologically make these guys up their ante and play. He's got great coaches over there with him. He don't really have no inexperienced people over there on his staff. They all was either really, really good players or they're seasoned coaches that he has on that staff. He's got 3 Hall of Famers on his staff. Him himself is a Hall of Famer, and then he's got Warren Sapp on there, and he's got the
Marshall Falk. Marshall Falk is another Hall of Famer. Yes,
3 Hall of Famers on his staff, DT. So how you're getting a whooping? How?
Well, you're going to take a whooping if you don't play well enough. You're going to take a whooping. That's just how it is. It's no other way to shape it. So getting on to the decals you're talking about, and I do remember vividly decals on helmets. Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson. I mean, they had a lot of teams back then. Those accomplishments, basically, you're telling your players that, look, every time you do something well, we're gonna honor you by giving you one of those decals to put on your helmet, and that will determine and decide which players are leaders and which players might not be as much of a leader as they need to be. Wouldn't you say?
Well, leadership comes with your actions, and that's what it is, DC. You know, you don't need all the accolades like that to be a leader.
Right.
I've seen guys, especially in high school, guys who had loud as mouth, that didn't even touch the damn field. But you're talking about motivation? They will motivate you. They were like a cheerleader with a helmet on, man.
Absolutely.
So that's what he needs. They need to get these guys to get in each other's face. Like today, I was watching a Morehouse game. Guy came right over there for a pick, dropped it, immediately hit the ground and started doing push-ups because he know you supposed to caught that, man. There's no way you didn't go back the other way with that ball, man. And those are tip drills that you do in practice because that's what's coming to you. Mm-hmm. There's a good back where you stick in that receiver. That ball is just as much as yours than that receiver's. So you attack the ball. You know, so you need these kind of players on your team. And if Dion don't search and find these kind of players, those Louis Vuittons, like he said he had when he first entered the University of Colorado, he's going to be in for a long season, man. Because if he lose that locker room and get those guys accustomed to losing, it's going to be bad, DC. And I could see it happening if you don't have these players to step up and have some leadership on that football team. It's only so much you can say in practice. There's only so much of the jerking around you can do to them on during the game because you are actually a product of your whole extension of that summer months practice and then practice on the field when you're home. You're a product of that. So if you got a lazy practice where you're not held accountable even when you miss a interception in practice, if you're not chastised by your coach for dropping that ball in practice, when it's in the game, what's the freaking difference? Because you got to constantly play these mental games with these players to get the best out of them. And Nick Saban, I've always referred to him.
He was the top. He was the top of the food chain with that.
Genius with it.
He was a genius.
At it, man. Genius. He didn't want to be your friend. He didn't want to be your associate. He didn't want to be nothing. The only thing he wanted some 100% productivity out of you 100% of the time. When you off that football field, hey, dog, I'll give you some dap. I'll hug you. How your mom and them doing? He's good with that. But when it's football time, football. He didn't want the media talking to his players because he didn't want them to get big-headed. And I watch interviews where he said, don't talk to me. No, don't talk to my players. He didn't want these guys to know just how good they were. You got to keep it in your mind that they can always get better. And that's how he was a champion so many times. And that's not by mistake. It's not by mistake. You have to sleep this stuff if you want to be good at it. You got to get up with this stuff on your mind. You got to be on a date thinking about football with your girlfriend. It's got to be embedded in you to be better all the time.
That's right.
And when you don't have that stuff, when you're not thinking football season is not here anymore. That's how you kind of manage this thing, DC. Otherwise, you're not going to be good at it, man. You got to be hungry for it. And that's the attitude of a champion.
That's true. Yeah. Let me just say about Coach Prime that, we've given him all of the credit that we've given him. But when we have to step up and say, look, this didn't go right, and he's just as well as that because he took full responsibility, like I said, for this game that they dropped yesterday. For Houston to have that ball 13 plus minutes is just inexcusable. That
no
means
way.
that your offense is not really balanced out to keep the ball into possession so that their team could be on the sideline as far as their offense being on the sideline, if that makes sense. So defenses, they could play well to a certain extent, but if they're out there constantly, they're going to get tired. They're going to get gassed. They're going to start making mental mistakes because you're tired.
You can ruin your defense.
Right.
You ruin your defense if you let them stay out on the field that long, because that means that offense is just like smash mouthing you, because it's quicker to go up and down the field if you're passing, so you won't have that ball for 30 minutes. That means they ran the ball down Colorado's throat. If you got the ball for 13 minutes, that means you pass it. You just give that ball to that running back. For 13 minutes, your defense is gassed, bro. That means you got to get them to the sideline and get the water girls to cool these guys off, because they're mentally drained and physically drained for being on the field for 13 minutes. It's almost game over for you when you can keep a defense on the field that long.
So it looks like Houston's quarterback, Connor Weigman, he took over the game just like Haynes King did in that first game against Colorado. What I don't quite understand, and I'm not blaming specifics on a specific coordinator or a specific position coach, but it seems like Colorado's players are always out of position when it comes to a quarterback in shotgun. A quarterback scrambles and he starts running, and they don't have anybody to shadow that quarterback. I'm not putting anybody down on their defense, but you should prepare for quarterbacks that are going to run with the football, and they're just going to face more of that during the season, because that's what's going to happen, because other teams have noticed now, look, if our quarterback starts to run on Colorado, they don't have anybody to account for their quarterback. I mean, that's just what I saw from what I picked up from watching the two games that I watched, and like I told you before, Delaware wasn't a measuring stick. I mean, they did extremely well against Delaware, but the measuring sticks are the teams that are really at the top of the food chain, and not University of Delaware. That was a tune-up game to find out which players you could play. I mean, third string, fourth string, you get those players in just to evaluate those players. But when you're facing off against a running quarterback, you have to do something about that. You just can't let that continue to happen, because they're going to get gashed the rest of the year. So here's their schedule. It looks like Colorado is going to end up having to play Wyoming next. Now, Wyoming is no scrub of a team. I mean, they're a decent team. So that will be somewhat of a testing ground for them as well. But when BYU comes to town, they're going to have to step up their game. I'm just telling you, BYU beat them in the bowl game last year. And BYU didn't seem like they had a lot of trouble beating them in that bowl game, in the Alamo Bowl. And they're going to have to step themselves up. Then, if you look at who they play after the fact, they ended up playing, I had it pulled up here. Let me pull it back up. Because at the end of the day, they're going to end up playing BYU. They're going to end up playing TCU. TCU is going to be at home against Colorado. And TCU feel like they owe Colorado one for that opening game that they lost at home 2 years ago against Prime. Yeah. So you could believe Sonny Dykes, he's going to be ready for that one. He's going to be ready to avenge that game, you know. And I'm pretty sure it's frustrating to have to go up in front of the media after each game and just say, look, we didn't measure up. We didn't step up. We didn't do what we needed to do. We had practice all week. We looked like we were ready to step into the plate, and we didn't do it. So, you know, getting back to that. It looks like Florida is really got the momentum in this game, man. If you look at how Florida is playing right now against LSU, it's a 3-3 game, second quarter, 11 minutes, 35 seconds to go. Florida needs to keep this intensity up. If they can keep this intensity up, they're going to be in in the game for the pretty much the entire game, because their defense is coming up and making plays. If you look at just the recent play right now, their defense is making plays.
That's always been the case.
Right.
That's been the case, throughout this season where they play well the first couple quarters. And I've never taken that away from them because they're energized, they're fresh, and they play well in the first couple quarters. If they can sustain this is the problem they've been having. So
that's right.
I'm not surprised that they're playing well right now.
I'm not surprised either, because I think they're playing with their backs against the wall, and I think Napier has fired up these youngsters to be able to say, look, we got to go in there, we got to take care of business, we got to handle our business. And if we handle our business like we supposed to, like we practice, we play like we practice, and we go into their home stadium and we take the win out of the team and the fans, because that's what it's all about. That's the big thing about winning. And Georgia's a perfect example of that. They were down. Look, if Tennessee kicker would have made that play and made that kick, it would have been over for Georgia. But unfortunately, Tennessee's kicker missed the kick. So great teams figure out a way to overcome adversity. And that's adversity in life. When football and all sports teach life to people. I mean, it teaches you how to overcome certain things that might not look good, and you might not even think you can overcome something, but you figure it out. And Georgia were able to overcome this and get this game, and that's what great teams are made of. That's the way I'm looking at that.
Yeah, whenever you got a sport like this, it's always good for, after sports. Especially when you've been brought up playing a sport, whether it's a tennis or boxing or basketball, I think the ones that has multiple players, like a football, basketball, or soccer, when you have folks on your team, it teaches you how to deal with folks at work when you're working, and attitudes and all that stuff. When you're a tennis player or a boxer, it teaches you how to be able to work out problems just by yourself, because it's only you. You only can depend on you.
Those are individual sports.
Those individual sports, you got to be able to work it out on your own. I watch boxing and study boxing and study this game of even tennis, where you have a strategy when you try to recognize your opponent's strong points. I still watch old clippings of Muhammad Ali, because Muhammad Ali would get in there the first couple rounds. The first couple rounds, he's only studying his opponent. He let the guy go in there and punch him and do whatever the hell he wants to him, because he's studying this guy, looking at his weaknesses, looking when he'll be open, and then he'll say, okay, at the 7th round, I'm getting rid of this guy. And he would make a nursery rhyme about it. The 7th round will put you down.
That's right.
Next thing you know, the 7th round, the guy's out of here, because he knew where the guy was going to be open, where he'll be, leave himself open and vulnerable, and he would clock him, bam. And next thing you know, he's out. So same thing applies with football and in so many other sports, because you go in, the coaches that I, played under, especially the very, very smart ones. I had a coach that he wouldn't even get on the field. He never wanted to be, Coach Wilson never wanted to enter the field the first. He wanted to be the first one on the field. He never wanted to be the first one. He was so superstitious, he never wanted to be the first team on the field. He don't carry the locker room to the other team get on the field.
Right.
He was superstitious like that. And then he had this way of huddling. He would have the quarterback looking at the players. The linemen are like this. We're already in position. So when we break the huddle, everybody is in position already. I don't understand why more teams don't do that. We always caught teams off guard because they were never ready.
Mm-hmm.
The moment we break the huddle, boom, the quarterback is in position, the running back is already behind them. And they were never ready. We bust a first down in a minute because they were never set and ready. We were always ready.
Mm-hmm.
So This game of football is nothing but playing chess. That's what it
It's a
is.
game of
It's so
chess,
much
just
fun
like
and
everything. It's not checkers, it's chess.
yes, it
And
is.
whoever can move their chessmen better and more effective is going to more than likely be in position to win, the game. And that's how it is. So,
Yeah. I just love watching it because the chess game is field position, is all of this thing. Is knowing when to pump the ball and go for it. Is
yep.
knowing when to throw a middle screen or a hitch pass or a deep pass. It's just timing too. And a lot of this stuff what we just spoke about with prime team, I say one thing, and you went on some other stuff, and I wanted to mention BC the parts where you were mentioning the fact that his players are out of position. That's total discipline.
That is discipline.
Nothing else.
Absolutely.
That's total
Absolutely
discipline.
100% discipline. Means that
Yep.
basically your players have to be they have to understand that they need to be in certain alignments and positions to be able to make plays. And that sounds easy. The way I'm explaining it, it's not easy when you're out there on that field and you got a 400-pound lineman coming at you to block you. And I'm specifically speaking from a defensive standpoint of view. But at the end of the day, how are these other teams doing it? How are Georgia doing it? How are teams that at the top of the key is doing it? Ohio States of the world and all of the bigger teams are doing it, right?
It's discipline, DC. It's simple, and sadly, they're not doing it because discipline. That's the part that can be coached. A guy who can run like Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith, those things you can't coach. But discipline, you can surely coach that because if you don't have it, you can sit your butt on this bench. Though, if you're not disciplined, discipline is easy. If you got a gap to fill, get your butt in the gap. Even if you get knocked down, get in that gap. Because if you fall in that gap where that running back is going through the 2-hole and you clogging it up, where is he going? He's going through the 4-hole. But you did your job.
Right.
So it's all discipline. Easy. Simple. Just discipline. Just don't be out of position. If a guy is faster than you, you can't coach that part. But if that guy do a curl and you're not in the flats, that's all your fault.
That's a good point. That is a very, very good point.
Yep.
So this is where I'm hitting a snag with teams like Colorado, because Colorado's not the only team. If you look at certain other teams, it's like, do you have the right personnel to have them in certain positions to make plays? And that has a lot to do with it as well, I think, because if you don't have the right type of personnel, that could be from the speed perspective or from the strength perspective or the defensive type of defense or offense that you're running. All of that has to kind of gel together for you to be able to be successful. Because if you look at that Miami team, and this was back in the early 2000s when they won a national championship, they had the #1 defense in the country. Nobody could run on them. Very few teams could throw on them. A quarterback certainly didn't even think about running. I mean, because he knew he was going to be punished. So anytime you have an aggressive defense like that, and I'm speaking from a defensive standpoint of view, that your defense is not going to allow certain things to happen, those other teams will take notice to that, and they'll have to make adjustments around what you're doing to try to make those adjustments to make plays against you.
Yeah,
looks like LSU just scored.
Yeah, and the Hurricanes are winning 35-6.
Awesome.
Yeah, DC, this game of football is so much fun to me. It's always a learning thing for me as well when you look at the younger coaches that's coming into, flourishing and taking on these teams and winning some of them. Buddy, all you have to do is be a stern coach and make your team do their job. It's
That's all
so
they need
simple.
to do is do their
If you
job. You
just
need to
your
do
job.
your job. Don't try to do another player's job, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what they stress
Whatever.
at the pro level as well. Doing your job. If you are responsible for something that you're responsible for, you need to concentrate on that. And if you can make that happen on top of helping another player who's having trouble doing that, that's even icing on the cake as far as I see it, you know, from that do your job standpoint of view.
Yeah. Once you get your job covered, man, things are easier.
It's much
Everybody
easier.
just mind. It's just do your job. If everybody just did their job, hold your own responsibility with this thing. It's so much fun because if you got your guy and your teammate has his guy, if everybody has their guy, you're going to worry the crap out of an offense on defense. If you're a defensive
Absolutely.
player, you're going to worry the crap out of an offense. You're going to deal these guys so much misery as an offensive coordinator if you do your job. And if you let that guy catch the ball in front of you, that's what you do. You don't let him catch it behind you, and you clock him.
That's
Man, you
right.
still did your job. You did your job because that guy may somehow miss the next catch because he know that whack you gave him the last time.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's so much fun, man. And to see when these guys have that competitiveness like that, I just love them when I see guys who competitive like that, who do their job, and you put a little showing out in there where they want to do their little dance and all that stuff with a little swag. That just adds to it
Mm-hmm.
because everybody who play this game, 90% of them, they want to be seen. They really want to be seen. And if you do your job, people gonna recognize
People would
that. They would
recognize it.
know.
They'll take notice, and that's
Yeah.
not necessarily in sports. That's in any job that you have. If you do your job and you do it well, you're going to be noticed. You don't have to stick out and try to jump in front of people to be noticed. You just do what you do best, and you be good at what you do. People will take notice to that. It's just inevitable that other people are going to take notice to the level that you are doing your job. So let's move on to this. Let's talk about coaches on the hot seat right now, quickly. So we had a couple of coaches on the hot seat from the first week into the second week. If you look at Alabama, with what they did to Wisconsin today, it looked like that might have taken a little bit of pressure off of Kalen DeBoer, but at the end of the day, Wisconsin is not going to be the measuring stick for University of Alabama, the Crimson Tide. They're not going to be that measuring stick because Wisconsin's coach is probably in a heap of trouble as well, which is Luke Fickell, who used to coach at Ohio State. He was a coordinator at Ohio State, and then he turned around and he was able to get the job at Cincinnati, and then he was able to parlay that and then move on to Wisconsin. Listen, Luke Fickell is in a heap of trouble up at Wisconsin. That program up there has a lot of history and a lot of pride, and they don't like losing up there either. And they're in the Big Ten. So Alabama is going to have to step up in these games when they start playing these conference games in the SEC. What would you say to that?
Well, it's what have you done for me lately? This guy is new. He's new. He's not a Saban, and Saban didn't play that game either. Saban had a losing season the first year, and not after that. After that, he went uphill. So if he dropped 2 games, his job was never, ever in jeopardy because he was so pissed.
Right.
He just had. I remember when he lost the championship to Clemson. Man, that following year he went and won it. He couldn't sleep or rest till he got a rematch and won that championship back. So this is the type of attitude that folks need to adapt if they want to be winners, man, because he had it embedded in him to be a winner. And he took that program to the point where they're not settling for anything less
than a championship.
That's all they want.
That's all. So, year in and year out, the University of Alabama looks for national championships. And that's been the way it's been since Saban has been there. Technically, he could have a one-off year. They might have not have made it one particular year, but on the flip side of that, the next year they were back and they were winning. Sometimes they went back-to-back. Sometimes they would win one and then lose one like they did to Clemson when Clemson was able to step up to the plate and get a national championship under them. And that leads me to this, that Dabo Swinney is going to have to make some changes at Clemson. And I'm shifting over to Clemson because Clemson is a great program. He has turned that program 360 degrees for the better since he's been there. And he's been there for quite some time. But if you don't want to adjust to the changes and the new changes of what's going on in college football, you're going to fall behind. And that's what's happening. You could see it. You could see Clemson is struggling year in and year out to be the dominant team that they were back when they beat Alabama. And a lot of that has to do with recruiting. Some of that has to do with how well you can relate going into the transfer portal, because that's a resource. Most people don't understand. Dabo Swinney doesn't want to exercise a resource, and that's his prerogative. I don't have anything negative to say against him about that. That's his prerogative. You don't have to take that resource and run with it, but other coaches will, and other coaches are taking that resource and they're running with it, and he's falling behind. And he's got probably another couple of years before people start talking under their breath about he might need to really step up and rethink how he's doing things, recruiting these high school students, because what I see, he's recruiting 4 or 5-star players. They're coming up into Clemson. They're getting a better offer somewhere else. They're leaving after a year or two. Come on. So how are you going to reserve and you're going to backfill those spots when you got that high school player that comes into Clemson and he might not want to be there anymore because he can find a bigger NIL contract in Miami or New York or LA or any place for that matter? He's going to have to make those changes, and if he doesn't, he's just going to keep losing. Wouldn't you think so?
You know, I watched Dabo for years and years and years, man, and I used to admire him as a coach because he was this young coach that, you know,
he was hungry. I admired him too. He was hungry.
Was a guy who just was so into his program.
Exactly.
I remember he was out. Remember the years where he was out dancing, man, with his players in a locker room?
CJ Spiller and all those guys were there. He was having the time of his life.
He had it going on. But as time went by, I start figuring out the fact that he only coaches from fear. He's the guy who's I can put in that neighborhood. Spurrier was that same type of coach. They coach from fear, and they try to scare their players into getting the best out of them.
Right.
Well, that boat has sailed, man. It has sailed, and it's not coming back. With this new world of NIL and this transfer portal, you are going to be a dinosaur in this type of market of college football. He's going to get worse. If he don't make this sacrifice and harness his attitude of how he's pushing his team forward with this NIL and this portal, he's going to fall behind. And guess what? I don't feel sorry for him.
I don't either.
Because I was one of the biggest advocates for these players being able to make a living off of their name, image, and likeness, because I went to college. I didn't have no money. I used to have to depend on my father and my mom sending these dollars where I can go get extra stuff to eat or take a girl out to the movies or whatever the case may be. None of these guys are not being able to take their girlfriends out to a freaking movie. They can go buy her a damn Bentley if they want.
Well, Carson Beck is a perfect example of that, right? I mean, with the money that he's making down at Miami in NIL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, driving Lamborghinis and Bentleys and Rolls Royces and everything else, right? A college student, a 20-year-old college student. Some of them even younger than that. So,
and see, my thing was, DC, is the fact that if you're gonna sacrifice your brain, because they could talk to their rear ends turn blue, the fact that you won't get a sustained injury from headbutts with these helmets. I know, it's gotten better, but still, it's still capable of having brain injury. You can have the nicks from the shoulder, the Achilles, your knees, anything can happen to you, and not to be rewarded, because the reward was only back in the day. Florida just scored.
I just noticed that. I'm glad you let everybody know. That was a great catch too, by the way.
It was right in the corner. You couldn't defend that. But anyway, DC, that reward used to be ultimately is to make it to the NFL. But who's to say you're going to get there, DC?
There's no guarantee that you're going to get to the NFL.
Small percentage. If you look at even the people that graduate from high school, that small percentage of them going to college, and then get even smaller to get drafted. Don't you know how many people came out of college that was really superior players that didn't even get drafted? Or if they got drafted, they didn't even make the team. So some of their careers are done. They're done. It's no Canadian League. There's no USFL. There's no NFL. They're done with football. Now they got to go get a job. So you sacrifice those 4 or 5, sometimes 6 years, because I think Carson Beck is a 6-year starter now with the King. He's been there for 6 years. 6 years. 6 years at the collegiate level. So my thing is, you sacrifice yourself for 6 years, and all of these college institutions is raking in millions, tens of millions of dollars off of your name, image, and likeness, and you don't get a dime off the jersey, the mugs, the towels, all the merchandising that they're selling. And now you're teaching school, which is a great profession, but you're teaching school for $70,000-$80,000 a year. And now
that's in some places, not even in other places. You might make less as a teacher, but you were being generous. That's right. You were being very generous about that.
Yes.
So here's the thing. I mean, when you're running a program as a coach, and you're running a very large program like the Clemsons and the Miamis and the Ohio States and the Michigans, there has to be so many dynamics to how you organize and run your program, because if you drop one area that you come up short in, it could affect the whole program. And what I mean by that is getting back to, if you don't want to work within the system, that you can gain resources, positive resources sometimes, not always, from the fact that you got players out there that could come right in and they can play in your system. As opposed to a high school player, you got to bring a high school player in and teach them your system. But some players that are already in the portal, they have played in systems either identical to yours, could be similar to yours, or they could adapt faster than a high school player can in your system.
It works out. I really commend, guys when they can come in and as a freshman and start now, DC, with this portal. And you look at Daniels, number 7 for the Canes, and you look at other ones that's young.
Malachi Tony.
Malachi Tony is one of them that can come right in and play. Now, you just look at Beck. Beck has been around for 5 years. He jumped the portal, comes in. You don't get a freshman to come start, because here's a guy who's got 5-year experience at the collegiate level that you're not better than him. He's got all the experience. He played at Georgia, no less, where Georgia was always in the thick of things. So
that's
he's
right.
got the highest of experience that's imaginable in collegiate football. And now you think you're going to come in there and start in front of him?
That's exactly
You know
what
what I'm
we're
saying?
talking about.
That is not happening, man. So if you're a freshman and you're starting, you just do not know how blessed you are to be able to hold that position. Yeah.
That's a well stated point, and the teams. Carson Beck made a genius of a move, but Mario Cristobal also made a genius of a move to offer him that opportunity to come to Miami, because Miami is one of the largest markets in the country for media. So, I mean, are you going to play in Georgia, in Athens, or are you going to continue your career in Athens when you know you can make more money in Miami? Of course not. You're going to go to Miami, where the money is going to be a little bit better. And for programs who don't want to entertain that, they're just going to be left out. And see, Sweeney is in a program where he could entertain that, and he could lure a ton of talented players up in to Clemson to play immediately and continue that legacy of winning at the highest level. But it obviously doesn't, I guess, suit him like I'm talking. So, you just have to live with your own decision-making process. If you live with that, as long as he can live with that, he's okay. That's all I'm saying.
It's going to be a short rope for him for being that way and being that narrow-minded.
It'll take a while, because he's so deeply entrenched into that culture in Clemson. He's not going anywhere. I mean, there isn't going to be any consideration for that.
I'm not taking it that deep. I'm not taking it that deep. I'm talking about losing. He got to get fired, but he ain't going to be winning championships year in and year out with his attitude. And I'm going to show you why. I told you he was already a guy who coached from fear. Guys who coach from fear do not want a kid that's clocking $7 million a year being on his football team because he got it all. Because his way of coaching is, if you don't make that pass, I'm going to bench you and you're not going to the NFL. But if you got a guy who's already making NFL money, you're not talking to him like that, DC. And that's my point. That's the reason why he don't want those guys with that NIL money on his team, because you can't talk to them like there's some broke kid who want to just get by to make a living. That's his way of coaching. And you got to give a guy a certain degree of respect when he's making $7, $8, $5 million a year, and he's able to take care of his family. He's able to secure his future. So he's not a bum. So you're not talking to him any kind of way.
Right.
That's the point that I'm making.
Okay, so here's the thing. Coaches at the college level is making bank rolls. I mean, technically, they're making grand theft money in a way that these schools are paying these coaches at the college level more than an NFL coach makes. I mean, if you look at it, and you got 32 teams in the NFL, and I can promise you, out of those 32 teams, I don't know very many coaches at all that comes close to even some of the salaries that these college coaches are making. So it looks as though here, Dabo Swinney makes $11.13 million a year annually from his 10-year, $115 million contract signed in 2022 with Clemson. It runs through 2031. In addition to his base salary, he's eligible for performance-based bonuses for achieving certain goals, which kind of, it escalates his salary up even higher. And to my understanding, coaches like that, why wouldn't you want some of your players to earn, or any of your players not to earn money? You should be enabling and encouraging the NCAA to pay your players. As far as I'm concerned, they should be getting paid for the amount of money that the NCAA earns and the amount of money that these schools earn. They're building new buildings. They're opening new endowments. They're doing all kind of stuff with the money that these athletes put their bodies on the line for. So I don't see the logic behind that from Sweeney.
Well, the logic is, and I understand his logic. I mean, I understand his logic. I don't agree with his logic. He do not want these kids making this type of money. He want them to be able to do their job, make the school a bunch of money. He's got an old way of thinking. He wants them to be out of his hair before they start making that kind of money, DC.
Right.
He don't want them making that kind of money and working with him under him, because those guys at 19, 18, 17 years old, head as big as the stadium if you give them that type of money.
Exactly.
And he don't want that because they would challenge him. When you got a kid that don't need you for anything, it's just the human way.
Mm-hmm.
If you find somebody that absolutely don't need you for anything whatsoever, and most of the time it's money, it's dinero, they're going to treat you a different way, especially if you think you can talk to them people any kind of way. They're not standing for it, DC. They're not going to go for it. They'll tell you where you can go with your attitude. And then they'll jump ship on you because the portal is wide open now. So he don't want that over there, man. I'm telling you, that's his way of thinking. Because everybody else has embraced this philosophy. And I'm going to tell you right now, when we had Van Dyke here in the University of Miami, I don't know where we were going from here when he got hurt. And he was coming for another year. And here come Ward, bro. Ward was our savior. So that means that portal worked out for us. So here it is this year. Beck comes in. Fulfill the shoes of Ward. And sustaining these wins, because it looks like South Florida finna get a good whooping.
They're going to take a good whooping today. Tonight. For sure. Yes.
And this is because you got a seasoned quarterback that jumped ship from a good program to come here to University of Miami. And as soon as Dabo start getting in his brain that this might be more beneficial than not, he's going to be all okay, because his coaching never been questionable.
Never been questionable. One of the best coaches at the college level, as far as I'm concerned. He's one of the best coaches at the college level. Dabo Swinney. Yes.
That's never been questionable. The amount of talent that he's going to be able to secure is the problem. That is going to be his problem. Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed. So it looks like this game is 10-10. It's a 4th and 3. And this game is really getting interesting because for this game, it looks like LSU is punting it now. So they're not going to go for the 3 yards with a minute and 27 seconds left on the clock. Again, Florida has come in and they played really well. And you could see Brian Kelly. I mean, he's got that baseball cap down over his eyes. Like he's not happy at all about some of the things that he's seen out on the field, because Florida is playing really well against his team tonight, and he's at home. I mean, and when that happens, he's got to go in and make those adjustments. Like you were talking about, Saban was one of the best adjustment makers in the college coaching ranks back when he was a coach. I mean, Saban will go in at halftime and he'd make the adjustments that's needed. And that's chess. That gets back to that game of chess, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course it is. You know, most coaches I've been around and watched and admired, those coaches like that, DC, they don't even show you the things, you know.
They don't show you everything in the first half, usually.
They don't do it. They don't, because you can't make that adjustment. See, one thing about when you go in for the half, you got a chance to evaluate everything that went in that first quarter. So if you show them all your arsenal, then you just gave away part of it.
Right.
You just gave away part of it. But if you don't show them everything, there's nothing you can adjust to, because sometimes you can't make these fly-by-night adjustments when you're playing through the game. But if you can go in through halftime, you got a board there, you can have everybody's undivided attention on offense and defense, and you can kind of strategize for the second half. But if you don't show them everything, the stuff that they didn't see in the first half, they got to make some on-the-fly adjustments. And most of the time, you can't adjust to it. You just screwed. You just got to play off pride and in discipline, like we talked about.
Well, you're spot on, man. I have nothing else I can say about that because you've hit all of the right, fine points of what goes down when teams are playing like that, and LSU's going to have to make some adjustments because they could easily lose at home. I'm just telling you, tonight with the way Florida is playing right now, they could easily lose, and this will be, if Florida could pull this off tonight, I don't think all the heat will be off Billy Napier, but I think the Florida faithful will understand that Billy Napier does have the talent on the team, and that he knows how to coach that talent to the point where they can win big games like this, because this is a huge game. LSU is ranked number 3. They're ranked number 3 in the country.
Yeah, if he could knock off for 3.
If he can knock off number 3, some of the heat will come down. It's like turning your oven down from baking level. You got it at his heat level right now is 450 degrees as far as I'm concerned.
One thing about it too, DC, they would give him a sense of leniency too if he don't just get blown out. If it's a good game throughout, and
he just picked it.
Yeah,
he stared his quarterback down. I mean, he stared his receiver down again and got it picked. He just would not look off. Now, sorry to interrupt you, but it was just shocking to me that he would throw into traffic like that. DJ Lagway.
Yeah, we just got to explaining that, man. He's going to have a horrible season if he don't be able to adjust to what his receivers are doing.
The safety is back there in the center field watching his eyes. Look at there. Just come right up and jump right in front of the receiver. I mean, that is a no-no for any quarterback to stare down a receiver running a route. You need to look that receiver off where that safety is not 100% sure whether you're going to throw in the middle of the field.
He watched him. That play right there was dangerous from the start, DC. I'm surprised it didn't even get batted down.
He lucky it's not a pick six. If the DB would have been elusive enough, could have been a pick six.
They still got great field position off of it.
That's right.
They still got really good field position. The Miami Hurricanes is up 42 now. 42-12. Well, let me tell you this, man. I think getting back to the Florida Gators, this quarterback has to really go some one-on-one with his quarterback in practice, because I don't think that these guys are comfortable with each other.
Right.
He's not comfortable with his receivers. That's why he has to watch them and even watch their breaks. Their timing is not down, DC, because a quarterback can run around, shake off defenders, and throw the ball downfield and connect with his receivers all day long when they got a gel thing.
They gel together, right?
When you don't know your receivers, you got to watch him like a hawk, because you don't know what his breaks are. You don't know what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. And not only that, I'm watching when he's in trouble. These guys not peeling off and coming back to give him help.
Right.
All of that is that chess game we were talking about. It's a strategy. It's a game of knowing each other. And that's
right.
That cohesiveness of playing solid football for 4 quarters. And right now, they're getting ready to head into that third quarter situation that we were talking about, and look at the mistakes are starting to catapult now. Starting to snowball with these mistakes because they're not focused. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you can't get your team to buy in to even just the most basic part of being disciplined, you're going to have a serious way of getting these guys to buy into your program. If you can't get them to even just be disciplined.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. So it looks like when you mentioned Van Dyke, it kind of brought a little bit of interest to me to kind of see where he's at right now. He transferred to SMU with Rhett Lashley. So Tyler Van Dyke went from Miami to Wisconsin, and now he's with SMU, and he doesn't even start at SMU because I didn't see him playing in that game a week ago against Baylor unless he's hurt. I saw that other quarterback in there, but I didn't see Tyler Van Dyke in there. Looks like so far for his, well, he doesn't even have 2025 stats. So I was just curious of that because I remember when he played quarterback at Miami.
Is he on the team?
It says it is here. It says he's an active player on SMU's team. And you know, Rhett Lashley was pretty familiar with Tyler Van Dyke because he coached him at Miami when he was offensive coordinator at Miami. And that's probably why the reason why he ended up transferring there, right?
Yeah. You know what, DC, I was thinking about this while you were mentioning this thing about Coach Prime and his decision to go to that second quarterback. And as you mentioning that, I would have imagined if I was in that shoes to make that decision, I wouldn't have just took that swap out, DC. What I would have done is gave them packages together.
Absolutely.
That way,
you work both quarterbacks into the rotation. I mean, you have Marshall Faulk as a running backs coach.
You work him in, DC. You work him in.
Right.
And if that guy works out, you give him the same amount of repetitions to a certain degree.
Right.
And then who's doing better? Because if you just say, this guy is the best, and all summer he wasn't the best because he didn't come out the block starting. So now all of a sudden, this second, third game, you pull this guy. That's a huge blow to his confidence.
Yes.
It's a huge blow to his confidence.
It's a huge blow to Caden Salter's confidence for sure.
That can make that guy jump ship on you. He can jump in that portal before you can say boo because you damaged him. But if you put him in a package and he don't even know that you're trying to evaluate the other guy for that position because the only thing he's doing is putting them in packages and trying to see what keep your offense moving up and down the field.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you're going to have a tendency of putting another guy in there because he does stuff better than you. But to just say he's the best out of the two is severe damage. Oh, man, the University of Miami clocked that quarterback. Wow.
So it looks like Florida LSU just kicked the field goal, so it's 13-10 at the half. Let's cover a couple of early game scores, and then we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back for the second half. So it looks like Notre Dame is that game is tightened up. I thought Notre Dame was out front of Texas A&M. Now Texas A&M is in front of Notre Dame 28-24. Notre Dame is playing at home too. It looks as though here earlier, and I'm going to go over the games. Georgia 44-41. They pulled it out in overtime because the kicker from Tennessee missed the kick, in before the clock ran out, in the original fourth quarter. It looks as though Oklahoma blew out Temple. Alabama blew out Wisconsin. Michigan blew out Central Michigan. Auburn actually blew out South Alabama. Missouri blew out Louisiana. Oregon beat Northwestern 34-14, which to me was a blowout in a way. And looks like Ole Miss and Arkansas is in the third quarter, and Ole Miss is leading 31-28. That's another coach that's, we've talked about in the past on this show is Sam Pittman for Arkansas. They gave Sam Pittman an extra year because I think he was pretty much on the bubble last year, and they brought him back. Arkansas is a very good program. Arkansas is a legacy program. Arkansas has had some really great athletes come out of there. Felix Jones. You had a lot of good athletes come out of that program. Steve Atwater played defense, safety. But Sam Pittman, this would be a big win for him if he can pull this one out and beat Ole Miss tonight. That would be a big win for him and solidifying his position as well as I'm talking about Billy Napier's position.
Yeah.
So it looks like we're in the halftime. Booger McFarland and, he's talking to man. They're showing highlights of the Miami game right now, and it looks like Miami was 7-0. They threw another bomb, and then they made it 14-0. Which it looked. Who did he throw that bomb to? Was it C.J. Daniels? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they had a lot of spectacular catches in these games today, a lot of spectacular runs, and that's what makes college football so great.
42-12 is the score, the current score.
The current score. Right.
Yeah.
So coming up in the second half, we're going to cover the second half of this LSU Florida game, and we're going to talk a little bit more about NIL. We're going to talk a little bit more about players' futures, more coaches that could be on the bubble. Deshaun Foster for UCLA. I watched a little bit of that game last night, and UCLA did not look good, man. They did not look good at all. And if you looked up in the stands, it was less fans in the Rose Bowl than a high school game. Sadly to say,
Yeah.
So it's going to be some other coaches. It's going to be on the bubble, and that's just how it's going to be. We'll discuss that. So we'll be back and at the start of the third quarter, and so we'll see you then. Take care.